performance mindset. Look at all. Getting ready to present at the. Getting ready to start the peak performance. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Savvy Sales Lady Live. I keep wanting to say Saturday Night Live, but it's not Saturday. And I am so pleased to have this special guest in our studio today, and that's Malcolm Evans. And I'm going to give you a bio of him before I bring him on. He is the corporate detox coach in Atlanta, Georgia. He specializes in helping key individuals and teams manage change, develop adaptability, and build resilience. Boy, we all could use more resilience. With his extensive international sales and corporate experience, Malcolm is well-versed in the unique and stress-filled challenges faced by his clients. He equips them with skills, tools, and knowledge to overcome apparent obstacles by recognizing the hidden gifts that can be learned from difficult situations. Malcolm says his value lies in helping his clients overcome toxic, self-limiting beliefs, thus unlocking their potential for personal and professional growth. His motto is, and it's a powerful one, it is difficult. If it's difficult, you are doing it wrong. Welcome, Malcolm Evans.
I've always wanted to be on Saturday Night Live.
Sorry to disappoint you.
No, hey, the sassy sales lady is great for a Tuesday. Nice to see you, Christine.
It's good seeing you. And for the audience, Malcolm and I go way back to 2014 with Jeffrey Gitomer. And we recently caught up, and I was just so thrilled that you would come on to the Savvy Sales Lady Live, Malcolm. Thank you so much.
And it's a pleasure to be here. And it's so nice to reconnect after so long. And
Can
so much has happened.
It's been 10 years?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my gosh. So, Malcolm, I want to start with your motto. If it's difficult, you're doing it wrong. Would you expand on that a little bit?
I'm a lazy person at heart. With a background in engineering, I would find solutions, that were logical, which worked, which were safe. But often it was by looking at problems in different ways. So I'd always say, now I'm probably the most lazy one in the room because I don't want to do it the hard way again. And, we can constantly learn stuff. Old dogs can learn new tricks.
Boy, I learn new things all the time. And I am old, Malcolm.
No.
So let me ask you this. What are some common challenges you've observed among sales professionals and executives? And how do you help them overcome those challenges?
Great question. Now, and we know that challenges, they change all the time. The only constant we've got at any time in our lives is change. So in the world of sales, there are multiple changes going on that need to be recognized. And sales is such a rewarding yet emotionally challenging job. Now, for anyone that's not ever been in sales, if you imagine that, first and foremost, they need to understand their company, the culture inside of their company, and the products and services that they are taking to the market. But also, by the same token, they need to understand the needs and requirements of their target audience, and those are ever changing. So not only have they got internal things that are changing, company structures, acquisitions, mergers, and all of these things, new bosses, new ways of doing things, new legislative things that come in, like Sarbanes-Oxley and other stuff, changes in products. But then the real important one is understanding the dynamics inside of their customer or potential customer's business. And it's so great if you're an ideas guy in sales, because you can always take something creative back to your customer or your prospect to say, I've been thinking and I've been looking at the marketplace. Hey, I've got an idea for you.
So, how do you inspire change? Because Malcolm, people resist change like you can't believe. Well, yes, you can. So, how do you deal with helping especially with executives?
It's always been a difficult job being being an executive. It's tough at the top, and the reason I would say there, maybe this is a public service announcement for all the presidents and CEOs of companies, guys. If you've got a boss, know that he is kind of isolated. He's right at the top. There's change and pressure coming at him from all over the place. If he's got a problem on his plate, he can't very well go up to his boss and say, hey, I'm struggling here. The board won't look very good on that. He couldn't very well go down to his subordinates to say, hey, I've got a problem. I need your input and wherever. And maybe he can't go sideways to his peers who he went to college with, because ego may be kicking in. So, well, how do we embrace change? Well, it can start in a cultural thing. And if you work in a culture that is very entrenched, this is the way we do it around here, and conform or exit, that is where the toxicity starts to come in. And when we dig deeper into organizations, we tend to find that where that culture has evolved from is older habits, and people being sort of moved through the ranks. And often it's a lack of awareness of what's going on currently in the marketplace, which would really lend them to being a little bit more, how can I say, more open about, look, these are uncertain times. I need to learn about these as well. Instead of being intransigent and learning things from in the 90s and 80s and trying to apply them today, really take on board new ideas and adapt the businesses and the mindset of the individuals to be creative, to be, somewhere that you're not worried about sort of opening your mouth and making ideas. So often when managers are a little bit out of their element, they will suppress things, and the first word they can say, because it's comfortable, is no. So I want people to open up and get more comfortable with saying yes. And then, right, now what we're going to do creatively together to come up with a solution. That makes sense?
It does make sense, Malcolm. And in my coaching business, I hear a lot from sales professionals. These are the people that come to me that want personal one-on-one coaching, not teams, although I have heard it from a few teams. And that is, they're being micromanaged so bad that they feel suffocated. What do you say about that?
Well, a lot of that comes from trust. If there's one thing that's deficient in where we are at this point in time, but which is exacerbated inside of corporations and larger companies, is the trust of the employers on the employees. Who knows? They may just decide to up and leave tomorrow. The employees can't really trust the organization, the employers, because everything's fluid at the moment. Who knows what be layoffs and wherever. And then peer to peer, people don't want to trust each other because, well, the next one, next time there's a round of layoffs, maybe that person is going to use something against me. So I would say trust in themselves first. Trust in there is going to be a future, and in particular in sales. So whichever level somebody is in an organization, if they can sell their services, if they can satisfy the needs, wants and demands of a target audience, it's a formula for success and longevity.
You know, I really love the fact that you talk about trusting yourself and that there is a big lack of trust. I mean, I just wrote an article about this in my last focus drop, which is my newsletter. And every one of you haven't signed up. You need to sign up for that because every week I give you just a nugget of information to focus on. But with all of the distrust going on in our media, in our politicians, it's like once that distrust starts to take hold in your mind, then all of a sudden, everything you look at, you start to distrust everything, including yourself. And if you are the type of person that's now is starting to doubt yourself all the time, you're not trusting in your own abilities. Isn't that right, Malcolm?
Exactly. And I like to paint the theater of the mind stuff and wherever. And I tell clients at workshops and so on, I said, what did your great 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 grandparents do for a career? Of course, it's a difficult thing unless there was a farm handed down in the family, or some kind of business. Nobody really knows. And I said, it doesn't really matter what they did, but they survived. They had families, they had lives, they could turn their hands to something. And times weren't, probably they were maybe as stressful then as they are now, but in a different way. Healthcare wasn't so good. Here we've got so much with media and so on that's, people are constantly in a state of fear. And a lot of that is intentional. Once you start to trust in yourself, I call it stress, suppressed. Okay. And, when you beat the stress, you can begin to mend the mindset. And, relying on one's own capabilities and scanning the market continually about potential changes and preparing for them, mentally preparing. Now, I've maybe got a bit of a unique experience. I lived in Southern Africa at a time of an awful lot of change, and who knew what was going to go which direction. And you tend to build a kind of resilience and dependency on yourself. And it wasn't a choice. It was, right, learn the things that you need to do to take care of yourself. So when we learn something, it's there, we can use it again. So if anyone has been into a situation where they're uncertain about where they are, get skilled up, get confident, get prepared. It might not be so comfortable in the short term, but more and more they do things, they will become more confident at it. And I draw back to I used to be very competitive in sports. I played rugby for many years, and then I went into something which ultimately led to running marathons. And I'm not a distance runner, and I got sort of hoodwinked into running a marathon. Hey, run the first 2-3 miles, it'll be great, it'll be easy. Yeah, but it was big hills, it was hard. So the next time when somebody said, well, do you want to run the race? I said, yeah, but I want to run a little bit longer and a little bit flatter. And I found that I liked running. It was a good outlet, stress relieving and so on, but I really wasn't very good at it. So the more I ran, I found myself breaking through barriers, 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers, 10 miles. And I hit the wall at the half marathon. I couldn't get through it. I must have done 10 half marathons, and I ended up walking the last 15 minutes of it. And it's soul destroying. But then I ran a longer race, and I ran through the half marathon point. And I thought, this is strange. And I realized then what was working against me was psychology. I couldn't do it. I was telling myself I couldn't do it. But after my goal was set a little bit further, I ran through it and so on. And I think it's Les Brown says that the challenge for most people isn't that they set their sights too high and miss, is they set their sights too low and they hit them. So be a constant learner, keep testing yourself, and we grow into what's around us.
Malcolm, your story about running just brought back to mind. I used to be a runner back in the, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And I had run 3 mini marathons and 2 regular marathons. And when I was running, uh, it really it really brought to my forefront of my belief barriers.
Mhm.
And so, I just wish people would experience what it feels like to finally defeat your own belief barrier.
Yeah.
It is a feeling like you cannot imagine. You feel like you could do anything once you have hit and broken through that belief barrier that you've set up in your own mind. Like you said, it's all psychology.
Yeah.
So
And
I want to ask you this, okay? Could you share a success story from your coaching experience where you helped someone, a salesperson or an executive, improve their performance? Do you have one in mind you can talk about,
yes,
Malcolm?
yes, certainly. And bearing in mind I'm from Wales and we're supposed to talk, so I'll try to make this brief. um, I was having my car serviced one day, and there's a lovely place at the dealership, nice coffee and free toilet paper. It was like having a corporate job again. Sorry. and and I was just sat there, back and forth, eating the nutty bars and whatever like that. And I ended up chatting to this fella, and I forget what happened. It was about the Wi-Fi or something like that. And then he said, "Oh yeah, what you doing?" Well, just brought the car in for a service. Yeah, we got 20 minutes or whatever. What do you do? And he said, "Oh, I'm an engineer for a software company." "Oh, really? What kind of stuff?" We got talking. My background's technology, and it just went on and on. He said, "What do you do?" And this was like, 15 minutes into the conversation, because I was curious about all the stuff he was doing and the changes and developments in software development and things like that, applications. And he said, "What do you do?" I said, I'm a coach." He said, "Oh, like sports?" And I said, "No, business. I help people perform." And he said, "How did you get into that?" And I said, "Well, I've always done it. I've always been in sport. I've always worked with people. I coached myself." And we had some of these stories. And he said, "Do you have a car?" So I gave him a card, and we said hi and bye, and off we went. And I get a call the next day from his boss, the owner of the company. And he said, "What did you say to," I don't know, it was like Jeremy or something? I said, "I'm not sure, but it was a good conversation." He says, "Yes." He says, he came into this morning. He gave me this card. He said, "Look, we've got to speak to this guy." And what came out of it is, this was a very sort of dynamic thinking company. They like to hire within. And they took one of their budding sort of development guys who was very good with people, and he wanted to go into sales. So they created a role and they put him into that, but he was floundering. Now, if you can imagine, their software was aimed at banks and big box stores and so on like that. It was really good stuff what they did. So I went in and I met with the candidate, and we hit it off, and then we just sat down and started talking. And it was very apparent that he had a great personality. He knew his product, but he didn't have the wherewithal to kind of analytically look at an organization and find out where decisions were being made. Now, if there's one thing I learned in the corporate world, is that you need to be good at mapping organizations, and this is a challenge nowadays. Gone are the days of organizational charts, and they weren't the answer anyway, because all they had on paper was the structure. They didn't have the political influence of how decisions were being made, and where alternative uses of capital were being influenced, and you're vying for projects in larger organizations. So once we started to get into some of this stuff, after a couple of weeks, he came back with some of the people that he wanted to engage with at these companies. So we started doing the whole mapping thing, and we found that some of the interests where they intersected, we're here in Atlanta, and we found that a couple of these people were very active in certain service organizations, either individuals or on behalf of them, the company. And he said, well, I know people in this organization. I said, go join, okay? Go mingle, go socialize first and see if you can sort of meet these people. And then this went well, and there was a short list. He said, these are the guys I really want to have a meeting with. So, right, the best way to have a meeting is to do it in some depressurized environment. So what he found was a couple of these guys were on charitable committees within these service organizations, creating events and, day events and road races and things like that. And I said, well, get on the committee. Go and do something active. Go and show them that you are very similar to them, because you are, and see what comes out of it. Well, anyway, long story short, he got the introductions. He made the connections. He won a couple of contracts, may not necessarily have been with those people, but now he'd broken through the barriers. He'd run through that half marathon. He had confidence. And also he was beginning to have the wherewithal about political alignment and asking questions. Who are the influences here? How do you make decisions here? And so it got to the point that I think we worked together for about 9 months. He won a couple of nice projects. Every week we'd go through his CRM and his project list, and ultimately he moved on into another company, into an elevated role. So I take that as a success, because it started off fundamentally with no agenda. It was just two guys talking over nutty bars and Wi-Fi.
Well, you said a few important points there, Malcolm. And this guy, you coached him to do the work.
Yeah.
And a lot of, unfortunately, people won't do that extra work, get on the committees, get on the charities, unless it, in my area, unless it surrounds golf.
Okay.
They're not interested, unfortunately. And the other important thing that you said in that is it seems like you're right. There are no organizational charts anymore. It's like all the corporations, they all work in their little silos, and nobody talks to each other outside of that silo. And that is unfortunate that that's happening. But I do want to ask you this. We only have a few minutes left. And that is, have you ever had someone that was uncoachable, and how did you turn that around?
That's a great question, because occasionally there's somebody that comes into a class or asked to meet with that really just doesn't want to be there. And I had an instance like this early in my career, and I found the best way was to actually be direct and say, look, there are the office that I worked had a big fence around it. Okay, it was in an area where they'd had break-ins and so on, and this was in a different part of the world. And we walked to the window and we looked out and we said, how do you like the job here? You like the development? You like the environment? You like the people? Yes, all is good. And I said, well, something isn't quite gelling. To get the best out of the opportunity that's afforded you, you really, even if you want to skill up and just grow into something, even if it's in another company, there's got to be some willingness. And we looked out of the window and I said, do you know what the fence is for there? And this young person said, us to keep people out. I said, exactly. I said, it's not to keep people in. Life's too short to be doing things that you don't want to do. Anyway, after some bad words and so on and storming out and whatever, the person left the company. About a month or so later, I was at a trade show, and this was a young lady, ran across from one stand to another and grabbed hold of me and gave me a big hug. And I said, wow, this has changed. She said, I've never, ever been so happy. I've walked into a company now where I'm ready to receive everything they're going to give me. The toxicity wasn't there, because when you came in, you were unaware that there were layers upon layers upon layers of me being sort of told that I wasn't as worthy as I felt I was myself, for doing that job. So I think it it comes down into untapped human capital. We've got to see whether people are ready to receive. And if they're not ready to receive, then, sometimes difficult conversations have. But I say that if you can improve your mental and emotional well-being, to be grateful, to be gracious, to be humble. And as a runner, you know what it's like to, to cry in public after a long race. It's very, very humbling.
It's more like crawling across the finish line.
I ended up running ultra marathons, and that's
wow,
that's crying in public. But when you want to be your best, you've got to be on the right frequency, and it's an absolute beautiful thing to when you see teams getting onto the same frequency. They're not resistant because they know it's for the better good, or they're doing some things for selfish reasons. They just want to get better, they want to get promoted out, and so on. So if you're open to receive, and this always comes with conversation and dialogue, and no pressure. Improved mental and emotional well-being, increased resilience comes from these things. More positive self-talk. This stuff that goes on in, look, I've been through the half marathon. I can do this. I got it. And increased productivity and everything. And when things get ready, to be accepted, just the potential takes over in people. It's dramatic, and I get emotional about this. I always say I'm kind of selfish. I like to see people succeed. It's gratifying to me. So it's and I was given so many opportunities when I was young. It's a privilege to pass it along. So yeah, hopefully that addressed the answer or the question.
It did. And sometimes we as coaches, there are some people that we want it more for them than they want it for themselves.
Yeah.
And that's, you can't do anything about it. As you said, they've got to be willing.
Yeah.
Okay, Malcolm, last question. How can people reach you that may want a detox coach?
Okay, and that I always believe, and you learn in sales to come up with a conversational gambit. People always want to say, "Well, what's behind that?" Well, it's like it's there are so many sort of toxic organizations and things that people bring from home to work, and then they take home, and it's a big cycle and wherever. We address these things and we start to strip out some of this toxicity. And just as it builds up in your body from whatever's in the water and the air and the food and wherever like that, it builds up in the mind and the mindsets. And it can be destructive, to the individual, and certainly destructive to the organization. And people can get hold of me at mycoachmalcolm.com. It's MALCOLM.com. I think you posted the information in LinkedIn.
Let me put that up. What's it called again?
mycoachmalcolm.com.
Okay, My Coach Malcolm. Is that it, Malcolm?
Perfect. 2 L's, 2 M's, and a couple of vowels and things, And what I say is that, when you nurture either to yourself or to your team, profits will grow. And we've got clients in sales and we've got employees. Clients, we can only influence. Employees, we in control. So the difference between influence and in control. So if we invest very wisely in, unleashing it, and untapping the human capital, which often is stress suppressed, from our teams and ourselves, the sky's the limit. The sky's the limit, really.
Well, I'll tell you, what you do is really needed. And I'm glad you're out there doing it, Malcolm, because I
Mhm.
can think of all kinds of organizations that would need you.
Right.
Um, Now, you're on LinkedIn. Is there any other social media they can follow you on?
If you go to, I think it's Spotify. I put a podcast.
Spotify?
Yeah, I put a podcast out there, and it's very humble. It's not as professionally put together like this. It's called the Toxic Triangle, and it's really a platform for people I meet, just to say, come along and talk, and hey, come and join me on there, and spread the word. I'm apparently very big in Kuwait. Um,
It's big in Kuwait.
There's a few camels there listen to it, I think, but it's a lot. It's a lot of fun. It's conversational, no pressure. Bring coffee and
Did I
whatever.
get that right, Malcolm?
Yeah,
Okay.
yep, all good. The toxic triangle, exactly, and you'll find me on LinkedIn and so on. And I I'm just an old sales guy. I can remember the days when you used to pick up the yellow pages and start dialing for dollars, and it was and then we had the pager, and then it went on from there. The handbag phone, and now here we are, the internet. But the change is that people are not where they're supposed to be now. They're not at home. They're working virtual. They might be at the beach. Nobody answers their phone. Why? They don't trust the information that's coming at them. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? Some salesman might come along, slick talking, and sell them something they don't need. And then they're going to get in trouble. Then their boss is going to tell them off. And then, oh my God, it spirals and spirals. And this is where the stress builds up.
So you grew up in sales like I did back in the 80s and 90s, and you knew where every payphone was.
Yeah.
You knew. Remember the days of the Palm Pilot?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Oh
And,
my!
I found one of those on a train in Germany, and it was a real high-end one. And
Really?
for the next 2 hours, I was looking my German phrases up to decipher all of it. I found the person, and I called them, and I got it back to them, and I've even got a little sort of token of appreciation hanging on the wall in my basement. So it's
Oh, that's nice.
really fun. But sales is a great career, and it's if anybody that's in sales and having a tough time, stick with it. Okay, you'll come out of this. You'll be better for it, and it's you know. Just think of the poor clients that you go see that are in an office or in a factory or somewhere day in and day out. In sales, we get variety. In sales, we get to see what's happening around us, and we get the opportunity to become more adaptable.
Well,
So
in sales, you get to see the world.
heck yeah, yeah,
I always say, Malcolm, if you can master sales, you can master life.
yeah,
Because sales teaches you so many lessons, and it's not an easy profession to be in, but it's not hard either. All you
mhm,
have to do is just be willing to listen to the buyer and
yeah.
not try to sell, but solve their problems and ask good questions.
Yeah, and yeah, I'll leave you with this. I came out of engineering, and a friend of mine came to visit one day, and he worked for a German car manufacturer that gave him a car, 3 letters, and he arrived this one day, and he didn't have this German car. And I said, what's going on here? You're going to get in trouble not driving your company car. And he said, no, I left them, and I went to work, for another company. I said, where did this new car come from? He said, oh, I got a sales job. I went out of engineering. I said, really? They give you a car? I want one. So I went off, and I got a job in sales, and then, the trajectory changed. I ended up traveling, and I've been around pretty much, lots of places around the world, work with large companies. It's been so rewarding, and if I can give back and I can help people be successful in something that's so close to our hearts. You're a specialist in helping people get over that fear of picking up the phone because rejection may be on the other end.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, once you break that, the dam's broken, and then you can start to get into some of the refinement. So it starts with the basics. I've looked at your work. I've seen what you've done. That is so valuable because people don't trust themselves, and someone's going to tell them no, and they're going to get their feelings hurt. That's going to be uncomfortable. That's all in their minds.
You're right. It is. It's a whole mindset game.
Yeah.
And I had a sales manager got a little upset with me because I said it's a game. This is not a game. It's serious work.
Mhm.
And I said it's a game up here, though.
Funny, I've never met a sales manager get upset. You know, if you want a stressful job, somebody's in the middle in a pinch. They got pressure from above, they got performance issues and pressure from below, and they, all they need to do, I've always believed, is manage resources. And
Yeah.
my husband, well, no, husband,
Got something to announce, Malcolm?
no, it's not. That's kind of, my uncle had a racehorse. Okay, and he used to say, give it the good food, keep it warm, and motivate it, and it'll go and win for you. If you feed it poor food and you beat it when it loses, and you don't take care of it, it will constantly lose. So if you want racehorses for salespeople, people who will go out and they will win for themselves and for you, it's possible. So
Yes.
reach out to people like Christine and myself, and we'll hey, we may have the solution, but until we talk, we never ever know.
Yeah,
Correct?
you never know. You never know what can happen. Malcolm, I just loved having you on. I want you to come back sometime in the future. And everyone, remember, sales is a journey, not a quick trip around the block. So you all have a great day. I'm going to plug my new series. This is a new series I'm doing, Malcolm, and it's called A New Thought for the Day. And real quick, let me tell you about it. This is about waking up every morning. Instead of waking up, you know how you wake up and something's been on your mind from the night before? So you wake up and you immediately start thinking about it again. Well, that's living in the past.
Mm-hmm.
So what I do is I write a new thought on a Post-it note, whatever it is that's bothering me that I want to get by, I want to get past. You are creative. And so when I wake up in the morning, I look at that note and I right away, when my alarm goes off, it's on my alarm clock, and I'll say, "You are creative, Christine," when I wake up. and so it helps set the stage for my mind for the day.
Yeah.
So I'm doing a video every day for 30 days about a new thought for the day for you to consider focusing on. So
Yeah, and there was a guy called Dr. Maxwell Maltz some years ago,
oh
and
yes,
yeah,
yes.
he said 21 days to learn a new habit. And that was, because in 21 days, he observed that people that had lost arms and legs and so on, they were building new neural pathways in their brain and developing new habits. And the sensation of something being there was gone. They could overlearn it. So anything's possible, and we never, ever, ever stop learning.
That's
Okay?
right.
All
I've
right.
got his book up in my bookshelf back there.
Okay. Well,
Want
you can
yeah.
see my shelf here. My wife calls this shelf improvement, not. All right.
Well, Malcolm, I could talk to you for another hour or so. So I know
Yeah.
you've got things to do, you've got people to help, and I really appreciate you being on. And
Awesome.
everybody, you all have a great rest of your day, and keep it classy and savvy when selling.
keep it sassy.
Oh, we got a comment. We have Kevin Welsh says Q8. I'm not sure what that means, but thanks, Kevin. All righty.
Q8, the place where the camels live. Okay.
Oh, okay. Okay, got it. All right. Well, thank you, Malcolm. I appreciate you being on.
Okay. Bye-bye.
All righty. Bye-bye.